My son was Philip Lutzenkirchen. He started playing football at age 6. He was a big kid from day one and just was very athletic, loved football. Philip is the third of 4 kids. I've got 3 beautiful daughters. Having 3 sisters, I think that built a lot into who he became and his character and his sensitivity and his touch and his feel for others. He wanted to go to Auburn University and play in the Southeast Conference. He wore number 43. He went to Auburn and had a wonderful career. So big that he became a household name because he had a winning touchdown in the 2010 Iron Bowl against their dreaded rival, the Crimson Tide of Alabama. He did a silly, goofy, spur-of-the-moment kick of his feet in the end zone after scoring that winning touchdown, and it's called doing the LUTZIE. His goal going to Auburn was to win a national championship, get a degree. His goal was to go to the NFL, have a career there. He went to the NFL as a free agent with the St. Louis Rams, and he was their last cut in the fall of 2013. He was a communication and marketing degree from Auburn University, and he took this job in wealth management in Montgomery, Alabama. His goal was to get married, have kids, and then figure out where life would take from there. But he knew he would be doing something that would probably in a role to serve others. Friday, June 27, 2014, Phil was invited with some friends to go to a farm in LaGrange, Georgia. And they were just going to do things on a farm all weekend that kids aged 23 and 22 do. Unfortunately, they drank too much that day. They got in a vehicle at 2 in the morning because the driver wanted to go get a can of dip. And somehow Philip found himself in the back seat. They weren't wearing seat belts. We went to Mass that morning and came back. It was a beautiful sunny day. It was already mid-80s by 10 o'clock in the morning. When we pulled up in the driveway, there was a yellow sticky note, a Post-it note on our front door. It simply said, "Please call this number." And I knew this was not good. And I immediately called that number right away. And he introduced himself as the coroner of Troup County. And he said there was an accident last night and Philip was killed. And I watched my wife, Mary, drop to her knees. My daughter, Amy, screamed at the top of her lungs. My daughter, Ann, turned ashen white. And our world just ended right then and there. One of the kids was wearing a seatbelt, and part of our story is because that young man was able to unbuckle his seatbelt, he walked away from the accident, sustaining only a concussion, where my son and the driver were killed, all because of poor decisions Philip made that weekend. So the elements of too much drinking, well after midnight driving, speeding and not wearing seatbelts, quite frankly, made it very easy for my family and I to sit together and say there's a message here, there's a story, that we have to share it with others so that you kids don't go through the same thing that my son went through and your families don't suffer the same pain that our family suffered.
Whew, wow. Mike, how you doing today, sir? Good to have you on BCB Live.
Yeah, Rick, it's great to see you for the second time. First time saw you down in Houston at NTTC Tank Week, so I'm honored that you guys are having me on for your audience.
No, we couldn't. You know what? We couldn't be more honored, and you really do. You know, this story right here, it fits into what we do here at BCB Live. You know, we focus on the safety of everything, placing safety above, really above everything. Mike, we know the reason why you did this, right? Why you created the LUTZIE Foundation. Talk to us a little bit. Talk to us about some of the, I guess the successes you've seen or the differences that you know that you've already made through the foundation.
Yeah, guys, first of all, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you, this is a faith-driven mission now. Proud to tell people I'm Christian. I'm originally from Chicago, so I'm a Northern Catholic, and what that means is a Catholic out of the Chicago area is I'm God rich and Bible poor. God didn't put me on this earth to quote a lot of scripture passage and so forth, so I'm not going to mesmerize anybody with any of that, but I don't know how somebody gets through losing a child, quite frankly, if you don't have a faith and a deeper purpose. And I can't tell you today, 8 years later, since we lost Philip, why it happened, other than the young man created an incredible platform as who he was, how he treated people off the field at Auburn University, how he played the game. And when you play somewhere in Alabama, a place like Alabama, where you got Tuscaloosa in Alabama kicking everybody's butt and Auburn on the other side, even the people from Alabama over there tell you they love the way he played the game. So we believe in our heart through Philip's story. Our mission is pretty simple. I don't want another father or another family to go through what we experienced, losing a child due to poor decisions. And unfortunately, it happens all too frequently across our country.
Hey, Mike, and as we come to hear these stories, and as we come to talk about these stories, it's going to take these kinds of stories for us to face the fact of what's going on, right? If we don't hear your story or Philip's story, we won't heed the warning. We won't listen to the dangers. We won't understand just how tragic it can be, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I would have been the guy, Dave, that would have said, if somebody told us it's going to happen to our family, I said, no way. It's not going to happen to Philip. He's too smart. He's too disciplined. It won't happen to him. God knows I put myself in situations when I was in college where, how did I survive some dumb things I did? There are no sin-free people walking this earth, but it's all too familiar, guys. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia here, and we had 4 young students from Chautauqua High School Friday night, I think it was, were killed in a single vehicle crash. There was a 16-year-old cheerleader from Mill Creek High School over the weekend that was a passenger with a 21-year-old, what I've learned is a drunk driver. So it's just these poor decisions. So I believe what we're taking is a real world story, and I've got the passion to try to open doors in corporate America, in government. So DOTs at the state level, Governor's Office of Highway Safety. I'm so excited about the embrace we're getting from places like the Alabama Trucking Association, the American Trucking Association, gentlemen like Harold Summerford, who's the CEO of J&M Tank Lines in Birmingham, who's gotten all over this with us and just finished his tenure as the chairman of the American Trucking Association. Companies with large fleets, so medical companies, we're just kind of cracking the code and taking 43 key seconds and building a new cause, if you will, that is going to protect as a risk mitigation play and employee benefits, employee appreciation in the corporate world, but then bring it over and help us do things in the community to educate these high school and college students about needing to make better decisions behind the wheel of a vehicle.
The 43 seconds key, that actual key, talk to us a little bit about the thought process, the marketing behind that.
Yeah, it's simple, guys. I was asked 2 key questions back in late 17, early 18 to give your audience perspective. We lost Philip June 29th of 2014. So because of who he was, I got an immediate request to go talk to the University of Georgia football, head coach Mark Richt, and then up at Clemson by Dabo Swinney, all guys that recruited Philip or coached against him, and knowing that they're trying to protect 18 to 22-year-old males, that we don't make the best decisions. And then it was high school, all school assemblies and so forth. And that question that got asked was, Mike, are you concerned about Philip's relevancy? And are you satisfied with what the foundation's accomplished? And I think at that point, late 17, early 18, I delivered over 200 talks called Philip's Legacy. What legacy are you leaving? 250,000 people hearing the talk, from middle school to high school to college to churches and now into corporate America. So we were satisfied to a degree, but I think anybody, you hit a goal, you want to do more. And then the relevancy question, it's real world, guys. I just spoke down at Auburn University this summer in the same football complex that Philip was in less than 10 years ago, and 70% of the kids in that room playing football at Auburn didn't know who Philip was. So the relevancy factor is real. And somebody a lot smarter than me, excuse me, guys, somebody a lot smarter than me said, what if we put 43 on a key and call it 43 key seconds? And what if we put on the back of it 43 too distracted free, and we put it on a lanyard? Everybody seems to love a lanyard. And then we created a countdown that says before you start your vehicle, no matter what you're driving, what your experience is, or where you're driving it, you ask yourself, do I have a clear head, clear hands, clear eyes? And then we do tie into the 20-year program of click it or ticket by saying click it. And not to take your audience through the whole thing, but what does a clear head mean? You analyze yourself. Am I drug impaired? Alcohol impaired? Am I fatigued? Am I technology impaired? And another one people don't get is, am I emotionally impaired? If you're any one of those 5 is a positive answer, you got to have the maturity to step back and say, I'm not prepared to drive. We think if we do this right, the 43 seconds key becomes a nationally recognized symbol that when people see it, it's going to trigger them not to be distracted or impaired, to be a super speeder, to address this well after midnight driving by some of our younger kids when there's nothing safe to be on the road after midnight, to make sure and have the courage to tell every rider in your vehicle, no matter what state you're in and what the laws are, that you all need to have a seatbelt on. We think if we do that, we start to reverse the numbers that on a quarterly basis continue to go the wrong direction as far as the number of crashes, the number of injuries, and the number of fatalities.
You know, Mike, as we talk about this, and it's year over year over year over year, we're talking about well in excess of 40,000 stories, 40,000 lives, 40,000 people each year, and the number has been pretty much the same for a long time. How are we going? And I get it, the 43 key seconds. When are we going to see a change? When are we going to see the numbers decrease rapidly with these ideas and these stuff? We've got to get this going, right?
Yeah, I think again, I think everybody knows this, right? The definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing and try to expect different results. And I don't mean to be critical at all. I've got great relationships here in Georgia with Russell McMurray, the commissioner of the Georgia Department of Transportation, with Alan Poole, who's the director of the governor's office of highway safety. What I don't have in that friendship is getting those guys to get the sandbox together more regularly, to maybe look at how we do some campaigns together. One, instead of one coming out of NHTSA out of DC, the other one coming out of DOT, let's do this together. I go back to, again, I think the simplicity of 43 key seconds, we can create a new cause. I would never ask the C-suite in any corporation, a trucking company, a health sciences company, whatever the industry is, continue to support the causes that you have the passion for, like Alzheimer's research, through Alzheimer's walks, Wounded Warrior Project, breast cancer awareness. Keep supporting those, but consider adding a new one. And that's supporting 43 key seconds to impact your employees, their families, and the communities that you reside in. Our belief is that if we can bring corporate America along to understand there's a new cause that needs to be created, and not let's just rely on the government to create safe roadways, that we can create a game changer. And that's where our passion is.
Yeah, you know, I think about that key, the 43 seconds in trucking, and man, I can just think about things that we need to be reminded of. Dave, we talked to our listeners about it, even in our real job as on the trucking side, is this right here. Are you mentally, and you brought that up, are you mentally ready? Because with a truck driver, it may not be the imperateness of drinking and driving. You know, they're used to, you know, weird hours of sleep, Dave. But what you can't get used to as a truck driver is that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 hours of sitting away from your family thinking about what's going on. Maybe you weren't there for the birth. Maybe you missed the ball game because your truck was in the shop. Are you mentally ready to drive? You know, those things and so many other things. I think about that key, Mike, you know, really can be relevant to making our drivers, including click it, right? That seatbelt, because believe it or not, we have a horrible habit in our industry of buckling up. You wouldn't think that's the case, but many deaths from that we see are from lack of seatbelts, right? It's things like that I think we need to be reminded. And I love that key for that.
Yeah, I got to tell you what, guys, it's pretty powerful. I do a lot of speaking in Georgia, a lot of speaking in Alabama. I was just in Alabama last week. I had a teen driving summit. We had 300 teenagers representing about 10 different high schools. We bring in law enforcement. We bring in trucking companies. We bring in healthcare to really educate these kids. So if you find yourself in a crash, here's what the experience is going to be in an emergency room. Here's the experience in rehabilitation if you survive that crash. Here's what law enforcement's going to do for you. And then putting them in a tractor trailer to get a whole new perspective of what it is that driver is seeing. And the reality of, hey, what you can do with a 4,000-pound vehicle is a lot different than what somebody can do driving an 80,000-pound vehicle. So we think the Key's got the opportunity to really change the game. It's not. I had somebody recently say to me, Mike, the 43 Keys just seems too simplistic. And I'll be honest with you guys, I left that meeting thinking, have we missed something here? Are we not doing what we think we need to be doing? And I realized, I call them God winks. I stopped off at one of my daughter's house, saw my, at the time, 3-year-old granddaughter, Ruth Ann. And Ruthie took this lanyard with the key in the countdown card. She put it around her finger and she started to swing it. And within about 30 seconds, she grabbed the key and walked to the inside of a garage door from inside the house. And that just came back to me. A 3-year-old knows the key is for something. We all use keys to start a car, even if it's a key fob. Keys are so important. Boy, the simplicity is what makes this so powerful. Anybody can understand it. And again, we don't compete with companies like Smith Systems or anything like that. We're a real world story based on a loss of a life. We're creating a refreshing re-energized safety culture, specifically safety behind the wheel. We're imploring these companies to say, hey, you got to do more than worried about your commercially logoed vehicle drivers. It's everybody in your company that's important, and so are their family members. So, how do you take that training and push it out to the family members? And that's what starts to get us into the communities and where we start to make a difference.
Mike, as we talk about this, I rarely meet very many individuals out there that say I'm a bad driver. Most every single human being that I meet think they're a great driver. They all, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what you drive. They think they're great drivers and don't need better lessons or even need more skills added to what they already have. And I think what you're talking about by going to these communities and talking to them and telling your story re-emphasizes the fact that they need to continue to get better at what they do out there on the road and do more than they've ever done before every time they get behind the wheel, correct?
Yeah, I mean, guys, my answer is when people say, Mike, what's your goal? I had somebody the other day at an event say, if there was one word that you want any audience to leave with, what's that one word? And it used to be courage, but I think it's courtesy. I mean, I don't know if I'm a pretty normal guy. I got to tell you how many times I've driven in my last 40 years. I've had a license. Hard to believe I'm that old, but how many times I wanted to get around that tractor trailer because I didn't want to drive behind that moving billboard, or I didn't want to be slowed by it, or I probably cut that driver off and not gave him enough room as I cut in front of him. How many times I've said, wow, look how crazy that guy's driving speed-wise, or doing this or that. Well, then you look in the mirror and I do some of the same stuff. So the word I come up with is, if we would just be more courteous to other drivers on the road, it starts to change the game. With teenagers, I like them to leave the word courage. Have the courage to say something difficult like, no, I'm not driving away until everybody puts their seatbelt on. No, we're not vaping and getting behind the wheel of a car. No, I'm not going to show you that I can get this thing up to 80 miles an hour. So it's courage with that audience. But I think in general, we're driving, you guys know us better than I do. We're driving these vehicles they're loaded guns. And if we're just more courteous to everybody and want people to drive around us like we'd like them to, and we start to drive the way we'd like to be driven around to them, it's simplistic things. But that's, to me, again, I think what's so just evolutionary, if you will, of this 43 simple keys.
Yeah, Mike, I want to take a moment, just kind of, I heard you say something earlier about the state of Georgia, and I agree that we've got to find a way, and maybe this is one way, to get these states as well to work together. What's working in some states to create a protection of life better than, say, another state. Here in Texas, we have #InTheStreak That streak refers to the deaths in Texas. The last time that we've gone without a death on a Texas roadway was November 7th of 2000. That's heartbreaking. I mean, November 7th of 2000 was the last time we did not have a death.
On that day.
On that day, last time we haven't had a death on a Texas roadway somewhere. It's just heartbreaking. And what can we do to bring, and you know what was sad about it? We talked about it, and this is, again, is for people like doing what you're doing. It took us until November 7th of 2020 for me to even know anything, or 21 for me to know anything about that streak.
Yeah, guys, and everybody thinks automated vehicles, autonomous vehicles are going to change the game. I personally don't think we see a bevy of autonomous vehicles on the road while I'm on this earth. It scares me for our kids as they move forward. As long as we've got human beings making decisions behind the wheels of vehicles, we're going to have some bad results. My big goal, and I think it comes from my IBM background in sales management, I understand what road to zero means, but to me, it's, Dave, you said it, over 40,000 deaths. How can we reduce that by 5,000 and 10,000 and get it closer to zero? I don't think we ever get to zero as long as we've got humans behind the vehicle. But many of those 40,000 incidences were completely avoidable. In my son's case, they were drinking throughout the day. They went out at 2:30 in the morning because the driver wanted to get a can of dip. 3 of the 4 kids weren't seatbelted. So many lessons out of this. I know there had been distractions on a beautiful late Saturday night turned into Sunday morning weather in South Georgia. But we don't have a comprehensive message coming out of our government. It's individual messages like ticket or click it, you text, you pay, drive sober, get pulled over. There's really nothing out there campaign-wise that talks about being on the roads well after midnight when we shouldn't be, unless it's an emergency. We don't really have the super speeders. And what we think 43 Key Seconds is doing is it's creating a comprehensive message, a message that covers all the aspects that are happening in the poor decisions and poor behaviors. And we're trying to flip the switch on that. So that's why we think 43 Key Seconds can happen. What we're doing in Georgia, I'm excited about. Again, Commissioner McMurray would tell you, GDOT, it's trailblazing what we're doing. A nonprofit working with GDOT. The funding is there. It comes out of the bipartisan plan. It comes out of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, all funding coming out of DC down to the state level. There's resources in the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. I just think it's time we try something different. And I think we're proving some things out here in Georgia. I can't give you the data yet that, hey, we saved that life and we saved that life. But what we do know in these teen safe driving summits we're putting on, and we do know by putting these protected, by decals on the back of tractor trailers on our clients that are investment partners, that we're creating behavioral instincts and behavioral changes that are becoming commonplace. And we're cultivating champions within Alabama DOT and Tennessee DOT and South Carolina DOT. I'm so excited that we're going to grow this thing beyond Georgia and ultimately make our way to Texas. And that's where the passion comes from.
Mike, if anybody wants to reach out and get a hold of you over there at the LUTZIE 43 Foundation, how do they do that?
The best way to do is go to our website. You'll find our office number, but our website is www.lutzie43.org. You've got my email address right there. Heck, I don't know, I'll probably be criticized by our PR group, but I'll give you my cell number. It's 770-331-6999. We're going to try to be smart. I get opportunities to go talk in Spokane, Washington, one high school. I can't do that. But boy, if I can go out there and we can meet with, Washington government, maybe their governor's office of highway safety, and get some things going. We're working with a great group out of Alabama, the University of Alabama, that's part the university, part public investment. It's called CAPS, Center for Advanced Public Safety. We're just trying to collaborate with the great minds in great areas and bring them together to try to change this game, because I just believe if we continue doing the same messaging, same investment in the messaging, we're going to continue to see numbers going the wrong way and 40,000 plus deaths on our roadways in 2022 and in 2023.
All right, Mike, man, we do appreciate you coming on. And what we ask all of our guests before they leave today, or before you leave today, we ask that you state your name, who you're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Can you do that, sir?
I can do that. My name is Mike Lutzenkirchen. I'm the executive director of the LUTZIE 43 Foundation based in Marietta, Georgia. And you are watching BCB Live, the safest station in the market.
All right. Hey, roll tide, Mike. Have to get that out. 2 kids going to Alabama. I know you had a kid that went to Alabama as well. So
I used to say roll tide soccer because my daughter played soccer there. Her career lapped 1 year over while Philip was at Auburn. He was a senior, getting his way to go to the NFL. And I say roll tide with a lot of passion now as my son-in-law, Miller Forstall, played last night with the Cleveland Browns. So Browns got a nice win.
Awesome.
Nice.
Great having you on here. Love what you're doing. Let's find a way to stay in contact because it's going to take, all of us who have that passion with you as well to make a difference in this world. Thank you for all that you do, Mike.
Well, guys, I appreciate it. I'd love your clientele to go to our website, find out what 43 Key Seconds is, what is protected by. We think we'll create something that's turnkey and can really be a game changer.
Got it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Take care, guys.